Hello everyone, my name is Thomasin, a computer science major here at Lamar in my sophomore year. So just a quick rundown of what the rest of this video is going to be about. I am a SURF 2021 grant winner. SURF is the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship, which is coordinated by the Office of Undergraduate Research. And essentially my research project for the summer is to explore the vulnerabilities of biometric authentication methods. And in this research, I have two mentors, Dr. Sujing Wang, an associate professor of computer science, and Dr. Xingya, an assistant professor of computer science. So right now, we're going to be headed over to the Science and Technology building here at Lamar, which is where we carried out the research this summer. See you there. This is the computer lab in the Science and Technology building, and I am here with one of my mentors today, Dr. Liu. So for the past few weeks now, this has been our workspace in the STEM building, room 207A. And quickly a run through of our setup, usually on a day-to-day basis. This is the router that we've been using, and essentially we connect this router to the computer. The computer gets connected to the router, and also this iPhone that we have here also gets connected to the router. And the aim is such that the iPhone eventually has the same IP address as the computer, so that any network traffic sent out by the phone is captured by the computer, and they are established on the same network. And the reason for this is because we are trying to find out the vulnerabilities of a biometric authentication system. So typically, when trying to unlock a phone, a biometric device will not send out any signal, any network signal. And we know this because you can unlock your phone through fingerprints or any other biometric authentication means without a Wi-Fi connection or without access to the internet. But so there was really no way to capture the traffic because this is Wireshark right now. This is Wireshark. Wireshark is a tool that we've been using to capture the network traffic that is either sent out or received by any device on our network. In this case, this is our network, the router there, and the device is the iPhone. But doing this would usually be impossible because a biometric system does all its processing within the system without sending out traffic outside the system. And because of that, we needed to use apps that allow biometric authentication means to gain access into the app or as a sign-in option. Usually it's bank related apps. But so we used the Chase Bank app, and right here Dr. Lou has his phone, which he got into the app with his biometric authentication system, which I think was the face recognition camera. Was that? Okay, the face recognition camera. And the packets that were sent, that were transmitted over the network was captured by the Wireshark. So this is IP address 192.168.1.119. And that information was captured the moment Dr. Liu signed into his Chase app with his biometrics. Then I mentioned that Wireshark is used to capture packets transmitted over this network, and it contains useful information which we used in our code here. This is a sniffing and spoofing code. This information, most of it was captured by Wireshark. We can see the IP address of the device that sends out the packets that were captured, and we see the port number. This is for HTTP packets. And essentially what this code is doing is that it captures the request that was sent out and it's stored on the server. So at a later date, maybe when we have access to the victim's phone, we would be able to send out this request, and the victim's phone would believe it is the original request that was initially sent out at the instance of the scanned biometric. In this case, it was at the instance of the operation of the facial recognition camera. And because of that, it would grant access into the victim's phone. So for security reasons and more confidential reasons also, this is a basic framework of the code that we used and not the actual code, just to pass across the concepts. Okay, at the moment we want to demonstrate the concept that we have established so far. That is Dr. Liu right there with his iPhone. E is the authorized user of his phone, of course, and its facial recognition camera recognizes only E as the registered user of that phone. So this is going to be the execution of a program we wrote that sniffs the packets captured by the Wireshark tool I talked earlier about. And this happens as Dr. Liu logs into his banking app using his facial recognition camera. And as we saw, that took a very short time. The old transmission between the phone, the computer, and the program, very, very short time, because really it takes even shorter time to be authenticated by a biometric system. So here our code was able to sniff the packets, meaning that it was able to gather and collect the information that came from Dr. Liu's phone through Wireshark. What that means is that we have the packet information that can unlock Dr. Liu's phone. As a proof of concept, to prove that the communication links or the communication channel within the biometric system can be monitored, here's what happens when a user cannot be authenticated by said biometric system. So this is Dr. Liu. You know that Dr. Liu cannot be recognized by his phone right now because he's wearing a face mask, and that's why these packets are continuously being sent out from his phone to the computer. It's why the code keeps on running. They are actually error packets because the authentication system keeps trying again, and the code keeps on running as a result. So these are actually sniffed packets because we're receiving them and not spoofed packets as indicated here. Research. Our research was able to prove that it is possible to intercept the communication channel within the biometric authentication system, that we can actually capture the information that is sent out when a user attempts to log in or sign in to his phone. So there was a whole process that we envisioned, because obviously the whole establishing this vulnerability does not stop at capturing information. You actually have to unlock the phone. That's when the vulnerability is established. So there was a whole process that we envisioned, that we would eventually set out to accomplish, but we're constrained by time. So the whole process is that an attacker sniffs the information sent out when the victim tries to authenticate himself on the victim's phone. And so the packet is stored, the information is stored preferably in a local file. So at a later date, when the attacker now has access, just physical access to the victim's phone, he's able to send out that information that authenticated the victim, and then from there unlock the phone with that information. So this whole process was to be performed by our program, but there were certain limitations that we had to face, especially when we were able to intercept the communication channel of a biometric system. And we had three specific limitations. One of those was that we needed to develop a filter, and that filter essentially needed to distinguish between the information that can grant access and information that is irrelevant. Because, for instance, there were ICMP packets that were captured, which have nothing to do with communication, which have nothing to do with biometric authentication systems or authenticating a user. So we needed to filter out the correct information that would allow access. That was one limitation that we didn't have time to do. The second one was that we needed to store the information gathered in the local file so that it could be accessed anytime by the attacker and then sent out by the attacker to the victim's phone, which would grant access. So we needed to store the file, which we also didn't have time to do. And then number three, we needed to be able to send out this information in the correct sequence, because it came in a sequence, and if it's going to be accepted and received by the phone, it needs to be sent out in that same sequence. So of course, there's a lot of possibilities to continue this project in the future. Hopefully, that's the turn we eventually take. But yeah, thank you so much, Office of Undergrad Research. Thank you very, very much for this opportunity this summer. It was a pleasure, and goodbye.